Hey, what's up guys? It's Gage here with BattleBois, and this week we're going to do a little bit of a different video. Usually on this channel we post lists of the top 10 characters in a certain category of each universe, but instead this week we thought we'd change it up a bit and give you guys a battle. And obviously if you saw the title and thumbnail of this video, you know that we're covering Batman versus Captain America. And here to cover this fight with me today is RJ.
Hello, I'm RJ, old friend of Gage's.
Yeah, and you guys might know him from Twitch, username BeyonderWasTook, definitely give him a follow. He streams Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. But like most of the people that we have doing work for us on this channel, he's been discussing versus battles for a decade, if not longer.
In every battle, there's always three categories that we cover. There's always strength / output, durability, and speed. With street level characters like Cap and Batman, there are other nuances like skill and gear that we will also cover.
And we'll probably start with that, covering strength and attack potency from each character. And like RJ said, when it comes to street level characters, a lot of what their output is going to be is really just their strikes. But obviously that isn't the only form of output that these two characters have. And starting with that strength, a lot of the feats that these characters have are basically just shitting on other street level characters. They're generally depicted as like the top dogs among a few other people in their universes. Cap and Bruce are kind of there in the middle between street and outright superhuman. But neither of these characters really struggle to fight superhumans, even despite the fact that they themselves are not superhumans. We've seen a lot of crazy lifting feats from both Batman and mainly Captain America. Batman's been shown to be able to support multi-ton pillars with help from his grapple gun, and has dragged World War II era planes behind him strongman style. But Cap can also match, if not surpass, these level of feats. He's got no problem flipping cars on their sides, and like we said, grappling with superhumans. And we do get a reference to each character's bench press, so we do honestly have some direct comparisons for at least lifting. Now Batman's been shown using more than one 500-pound weight on each side of his barbell, so that would be implying at least 1,000, more than likely 2,000 pounds. And he himself has been quoted as saying that his maximum leg press is 2,500 pounds, which is over a ton. And comparing that to Captain America's bench, which we have also seen on panel, 2.2 thousand pounds. And that's also just over a ton. He's matching Bruce's maximum leg press with just his standard bench press. But lifting feats aren't a direct one-to-one comparison for who's going to be striking harder. So RJ, why don't you go into a few of their best striking feats?
Right. Batman striking is usually ranged in shattering thick stone, or scaling-wise, he can break an amped Ra's al Ghul's hand in over 70 places with a block. He is also capable of just severing people's bones cleanly with casual strikes. Can OHKO, or one-hit KO, characters that are considered also quote-unquote peak humans in the DC universe like Nightwing, Green Arrow, and Black Canary. Even superhumans like Hawkman, even fodder Apocalyptans, or genetically enhanced super soldiers are usually harmed by Batman's most precise strikes. Cap, on the other hand, can easily match Batman, even at his best, probably exceed Batman just a little bit without his shield by knocking out people like Daredevil, Punisher, who has insane pain resistance and durability on his own right, Batroc, Red Skull, or even other superhumans like Lady Deathstrike. He's also shown to grapple or KO and contend with people like Wolverine or Lady Octopus and just standard Doombots, which usually vary in power but aren't just standard fodder.
Yeah, it's been stated that his super soldier serum has pretty much brought him to the limit of what a Marvel human could possess at all without having superhuman characteristics. And like you mentioned, all the feats that we've mentioned so far are without him using his shield. Now, it's famously made of vibranium and proto-adamantium, so not only does it absorb kinetic energy, it's also one of the hardest substances in all of the Marvel universe. Now, this obviously would apply more to durability and gear, but he can obviously use the shield to enhance his strikes. And using these shield strikes, he's harmed people that neither him nor Batman could have any chance of harming with their bare hands. And he's even sliced through the Inhuman Queen Medusa's hair, and this is capable of restraining Spider-Man and even higher tiers like The Thing, Namor, and She-Hulk. And these are tensile strength feats, while Cap did use the edge of his shield in a more of a slicing manner, but it's still impressive in terms of portrayal, the fact that he was able to cut right through it. Not only this, but his shield can drive straight through tank turrets, and this is just with him throwing it. And probably his best feat with his shield is severing the head of Ultron from his body. And beyond using his shield for striking, probably his best subjective lifting feat with his shield would be using it to dispel the momentum and impact from a falling skyscraper. Now, this didn't take away the weight of the skyscraper, it just dispelled the kinetic energy of it falling. So with the help of his shield, Captain America was able to achieve a feat that even characters above him like Spider-Man would struggle to do. But this was described as him holding it up with basically pure willpower. Despite this being his best objective lifting feat, I don't think it transfers very well into combat directly, but it is definitely worth mentioning as one of his most iconic feats. And one thing that's different about Cap in comparison to Batman is that he's often seen as the undisputed leader of the Avengers. And this means that he's often going to get spotlights in a way that puts him over characters that he really has no business beating normally. Now, for example, he's overpowered and stomped characters like Rhino and even the Hulk, who are mid and top tier bricks in Marvel respectively. Now, Captain America obviously has no business beating characters like this, at least in a straight up fight, but I did want to mention feats like these just so they can be disregarded as outliers.
Yeah, not to say that Batman doesn't have his own set of outliers, but it's more prevalent with Cap, as Sammy said. He is more forefront as the leadership role of the Avengers as Batman is to the Justice League. So the next stat we're going to cover is durability, which both characters have impressive durability feats, though for entirely different reasons. Cap with some help of his armor, but usually just raw durability, and Batman with his armor. Covering Cap first though, durability is probably one of his best stats. With or without armor, it doesn't really matter, as the make of the armor, usually being lightweight titanium and Kevlar, is sort of inconsistent throughout his history. Sometimes it's more prevalent than others, sometimes it feels like it's just made out of paper. So a lot of his durability is mixed with armor and without armor. You can just kind of take him as both. Cap has extreme endurance. Again, due to the forefront of him being the leader of the Avengers, he takes hits from guys like Namor, War Machine, other Heralds of Galactus, and usually that would be more in the outlierish territory, but if he does have his shield, it makes more sense, as the shield also amplifies his durability as it would amplify his striking, even more so. With the shield, he is also capable of protecting himself against Extremis Iron Man, Hulk, or even Odin Force Thor. The latter of the feats a bit more iffy, but I can definitely see him consistently taking hits from Iron Man suits or lower if he's able to throw up his shield in time. He also has a low level healing factor thanks to the Super Soldier Serum, and he can heal severe burns in minutes. It allows him to shrug off bullets, resist certain toxins, walk off explosions, and survive any number of otherwise fatal injuries. I recall a feat of him, I think, piercing through his heart and still continuing to fight on, which just goes on to show how insane his endurance is and how hard it is to put him down, even if you get past the raw durability he has.
Yeah, and his willpower is really one of the main reasons that it's so hard to put him down, even for characters that should just punch his head off. And Batman is also pretty similar in that way, but though, like you said, he does have a little bit more protection through his armor. Now, the material of his armor does vary dependent on the version, but it is weaved in a way that makes the suit completely flexible, as if it was made of spandex. Now, the bulletproof nature of this suit is inconsistent, but has been far more emphasized in post-New 52. But his cape in particular appears to be basically impervious to all small arms and even automatic fire. His gauntlets also seem like a particularly durable part of his suit. For example, they've been able to tank grip strength from a character that can bend steel beams pretty casually. And it's even able to deflect sword strikes from even the best swordsmen in all of DC. And this is even when they're wielding blades that are designed to go through titanium. His armor also protects him from being driven through solid stone, though he can take attacks like this even without his suit. He's also taken his strikes from a laundry list of superhumans throughout his publication. And this obviously makes sense since there are characters in his rogues gallery that have enhanced strength like Bane, Clayface, and Killer Croc. And like Captain America, he does have his own significant outliers, as his suit has tanked hits from Kryptonians and Martians in the past. But like we said, we do consider a lot of the showings like this to be outliers. Even without the aid of armor, Batman is still one of the most durable street characters in all of DC. Like Cap, he can fight through bullet wounds and tank energy-based attacks that would kill normal humans. Though he is definitely more quote-unquote human than Cap in this category, but his technology does do a lot to help fill that gap, which really isn't that large in the first place. So even given their different types of durability, we'd still say that they are pretty neck and neck in this category. Now moving on to speed, and we know Batman, one of his most famous tropes is disappearing from the presence of enemies and allies alike, and this is before most of them can even react or happens in the time that it takes for them to turn around. And this in part is due to his top tier stealth, but impressive speed definitely does play a factor in this trope. And that obviously does speak to his movement, which is efficient enough to the point that normal people have basically zero chance of tracking him when he's moving. And even when looking directly at him, he appears basically as a blur or outright disappears from untrained characters' eyes. And obviously being stationed in Gotham, he's gained agility and running speed that allow him to cross the city in minutes. He's even been shown to travel by rooftop faster than the Gotham City PD can drive when there's no traffic. He's even been shown to keep pace with speeding vehicles on foot, like cars and trains, but this is in short bursts. And these bursts have been referenced as having a pace of around 50 miles per hour. Now, where we think Batman actually shines the most is in his reaction. He's able to dodge bullets from both automatic and small arms fire, and this is even when they are shooting from several different sources. He's even deflected them off of his gauntlets and used batarangs to deflect bullets in the past. And even sniper shots from some of the most skilled assassins in DC, like Deathstroke and Deadshot, are completely unable to tag him. And in terms of close quarters, he's able to disarm and neutralize multiple opponents in under a second, and he fights regularly with people that have superhuman speed. There's even characters that say Batman himself moves in slow motion from their perspective, but his reaction speed is still enough for him to keep up with characters like this. His close quarters reaction speed is basically unmatched in all of Street Tier in our opinion, and we'll go over this a little bit more in the skill section. Batman also has other miscellaneous forms of speed, like gliding with his cape. And this is something he's done to outpace cars that are speeding on the highway. And his grapple gun can even pull him out of the way of gunfire and can shoot an explosive over 100 feet out of range in less than 4 seconds. So beyond his reaction and running speed, he definitely has other ways to move in top tier street speeds.
There is a feat that Sammy forgot to mention for Batman, his most impressive feat of catching a baseball when he's old. But just as we did for Bruce, we'll cover Cap's movement speed, followed by his other subtypes of speed, like reactions and combat speed. In the first subcategory, like we did Bruce, Steve has feats that are directly superior or similar to Bruce's top sprint or the bursts that Sammy mentioned, as Cap can outrun military vehicles and even animals moving at Bat's previous mention of 50 miles per hour. Cap is also superior in the way that he can maintain the speed with minimal depletion of stamina, even clearing a mile within just over a minute. This slight speed advantage isn't really relevant, as it's just movement speed, but we have to cover everything diligently. This just shows that Cap can easily keep up with Batman on a foot race, I guess. He also has his own feats of intercepting bullets, artillery, sonics, energy attacks, and all kinds of other attacks with his shield. He also has faster than eyesight showings to match anything that Batman has done. It isn't out of the ordinary for Cap to spar with and evade superhumans far above his pay grade, even in groups. I recall even an instance in Civil War where Cap evaded basically the entirety of S.H.I.E.L.D. when they tried to restrain him. But entire Avengers rosters have even struggled to contain his agile movements, which are above even superhuman Atlanteans. Like Batman, he surpasses even the raw movement and combat speed of other top street level characters like Daredevil and Bucky when going all out. Super speed almost seems like the requirement for tagging Cap when he's at his fullest. There are even statements attesting to his perception, allowing him to process speeds above what any normal human could possess. Overall, both characters are extremely fast. The differences in speed are negligible at best. So in a full contest of blows, it will be even, and they will just constantly be either deflecting, dodging, or striking each other.
And a lot of times in close quarters exchanges, speed goes sort of hand in hand with skill, especially in Street Tier where skill is probably the most important. And admittedly, Cap isn't really known quite as much for knowing martial arts as Batman is, but he's definitely still a top tier combatant. Now, if you saw one of the first videos that we posted on this channel, he did miss out on our top 10 most skilled characters in Marvel, but I do still think he would definitely be considered if we were doing a top 20 or even 15. And as mentioned in the speed category, Cap really has zero issue tangling with characters that are way above his pay grade in terms of strength. Even characters that are way stronger than him and have similar training, like US Agent, who is noted to have 10 times the strength that Cap has. Even he was completely helpless in a close quarters exchange and was basically embarrassed by Cap. And even other superhumans like Asgardian trolls and Dark Elves, Beast from the X-Men, and even Spider-Man, they've had similar issues combating Cap due to his extensive martial arts training. And this is despite a huge physical disadvantage. And it's not just raw knowledge and experience. The Super Soldier Serum has given him adaptive skill, and this has allowed him to perfect forms of combat to a higher degree than masters who have been practicing it for decades. This is almost a feat that you would expect from a character like Taskmaster. But Cap can do this with both armed and unarmed disciplines. And using his extensive experience combined with this adaptive skill, he's been able to spar with characters that are considered the absolute peak of Marvel Earth in terms of martial arts. Guys like Shang-Chi and who I just mentioned, Taskmaster. And Cap has even defeated Taskmaster in a one-on-one. And this is a character that did make our top 10 most skilled characters in Marvel. Another character who made that list, Black Panther, is another guy who's complemented Cap's martial arts skills and fought evenly with him. And once again, going back to what RJ said previously about Cap's ability to fight multiple superhumans at once, another feat that was during the Civil War, he beat a group known as the Cape Killers, and they were able to capture Lady Deathstrike and Taskmaster, two characters that Captain America has beat individually. And beyond his portrayal as a martial artist, he is also a master of nerve strikes. And even with his regular strikes being able to harm superhumans, he can do further damage with these nerve strikes. And to further express the insane amount of hand-to-hand skill that Captain America has, he's proven that he doesn't even need the Super Soldier Serum to remain a top-tier street-level character. And he proved this when even without the serum, he defeated multiple users of the serum simultaneously, and has defeated other characters like Crossbones without the serum as well. He's also a master marksman of firearms and most notably his shield. Now, to properly portray how difficult it is to wield the shield as Cap does, dozens of shield agents and even Iron Man with all of his scanners failed to perform even simple throws, let alone the insane trick shots that Cap is able to accomplish casually. He can ricochet his shield dozens of times before it can return to his hands, and can even throw it with enough precision to switch on a lighter from dozens of feet away. And as mentioned in the speed section, he can intercept bullets, but he can also do this by throwing his shield, and his proficiency with the shield was impressive enough to even get Hawkeye's attention. So despite martial arts not being a huge part of his character, he's still on an insanely high level, at least in the context of the Marvel Universe.
Unlike Cap, Batman did make the cut for the top 10 most skilled characters in his universe as a part of the top 5. A lot of his skill feats were covered in that video, so definitely check that out if you haven't. But in summary, Bruce is almost untouchable as far as knowledge and practice skill is concerned, only surpassed by a handful of people. He's mastered 127 unique martial arts during his endless training, combining them into an advancing style that has brought him victories over the likes of Shiva, Deathstroke, Ra's al Ghul, and countless other top-tier masters in the DC universe. It wouldn't be too crazy to call Batman the most skilled martial artist on Earth, but it is entirely possible that someone else has that spot as well. Like Cap, he's also mastered pressure points and nerve strikes to a degree that even superhuman durability can't hold up against such strikes. In fact, it could definitely be argued that Bat's proficiency with internal techniques are better than Cap's. He can turn off limbs with a poke and even erase people's memories. He's shown extensive knowledge of humans' entire nervous systems and bodies in general, able to formulate strikes that do the most amount of damage. Even a single touch from Batman can incapacitate a highly skilled fighter. His internal targeting with techniques like throat chops or eardrum claps can be a problem for even higher level members of the Justice League. He's even got silly stuff like vibrating palm strikes and low level chi mastery. On top of this, he's also been described as a master of every armed form of combat, from firearms to swordsmanship to obviously his batarangs. He's even been stated as second only to Captain Boomerang himself in terms of handling these types of weapons. He has near perfect aim, and his throwing speed is priced to the point of consistency down to the 100th of a second. He seems to have mastered the art of ricocheting as well, as he can predict perfectly the trajectory of both his target and his batarang in less than a second. We'll be going over a little bit more of his skill with weaponry in the gear section, but he's definitely a top class in that regard in the DC universe as well. Overall, Batman does seem to have the slight skill advantage over Cap, which is more significant in street level fights than they are in higher level fights, which will sway the decision of the fight in one way or another.
And like in the skill section, we also think that in this section with gear, it's obviously Batman's bread and butter. In terms of quantity, at least, he's way above Captain America in terms of gear. Generally, Cap is really only armed with his shield and maybe some assorted standard weaponry, but that's not entirely consistent. He's usually just out there with his shield. And even if we did take this inconsistent gear into account, it still has nothing on Batman's seemingly endless utility belt. So considering the deficit in quantity, we think it'd be a little bit more appropriate to list how Cap would interact with the vague standard gear that Batman usually has.
Cap's enhanced senses will guide him through any kind of smoke-based evasion, and his ability to fight blind will mean that Batman's strategy of fighting in smoke would be useless.
And it's a strategy that Batman usually relies on pretty heavily. Another form of gas that he uses usually like toxins and knockout gas, but Cap's metabolism and regeneration are definitely going to protect him. I mean, his metabolism is to the point where it's been stated that he's basically immune to any chemical attack, and he's resisted chemical attacks that even a gamma being like She-Hulk couldn't. So basic knockout gas is definitely not going to work.
which then leads to Batman's other form of attacking with gear, which are his exploding batarangs, which explosives of any kind, even ones planted as traps, are likely to be completely neutralized by the kinetic absorption and durability of the shield. Moving on from that, Bat's restraining foam would definitely be a problem for Cap, provided that his shield arm is held down, but Steve's reaction time is more than likely enough to get off a precise shield throw to break himself free.
Yeah, Batman most usually uses the restraining foam against slower brick-like characters like Clayface, so somebody with higher reaction like Captain America I think would definitely be able to escape, but usually the most effective portions of Batman's kit are going to be his flashbangs, batarang variants, electric energy-based weapons, and he even is known to carry some temperature-based grenades like heat grenades or more usually ice grenades to deal with Clayface. He's even carried sonics regularly, and this is fairly standard as we see when he first meets Superman in the New 52. We see that he regularly carries hypersonics on his utility belt. But Cap has definitely faced off against this type of offense in the past before, so he could certainly survive or escape. Particularly heat-based grenades and sonics are something he seems to be very prepared for. But he doesn't have any kind of direct or objective counter to the list that I just mentioned.
Batman also carries other less consistently used batarangs like magnets or regen nullification or even NTH metal. These would all be extremely useful against Cap, probably even fight altering in a significant way for Bruce. But again, consistently they're not used very much, so including them in a battle like this, where it's supposed to be his overall standard gear, would be a bit disingenuous and probably biased towards Bruce if we were allowed to take those into consideration.
But even despite not having gear that he doesn't regularly carry, he still obviously takes the stat in terms of quantity. I mean, obviously Captain America's shield is more powerful than anything that Bruce has singularly, but only being armed with the shield, which is something that can be disarmed, definitely puts him at a disadvantage in this stat.
As implied by a rundown of both, they are honestly beyond the designation of peak human, even by the standard of comic book peak humans, which are incredibly above what we consider in real life to be peak humans. Obviously, if we go by the presented bench press, Cap outranks Bruce by at least 200 pounds, and even despite the fact that this isn't an exact one-to-one comparison for combat, we do still see it as an accurate representation of their strength comparison. Batman's strikes are definitely more precise, but going by feats and comparing their portrayals, it's clear that Cap hits harder.
And a lot of the precision that goes into Bruce's strikes are enhanced further by his skill, which is also true for Cap, but I would say it's definitely to a higher degree for Bruce. So in terms of raw strength, Captain America definitely takes that stat. And moving on to durability, we obviously don't have enough time to go over the insanely iconic feats for both characters in this category, but both definitely have discipline of a superhuman level, and this is probably going to come down to a fight of willpower. And that's fitting since Captain America and Batman are probably some of the most powerful characters on their respective hero rosters in terms of willpower. Both can fight through bullet wounds, shattered bones, and any number of horrible injuries that we mentioned in the durability section. And it would come down to Captain America's fortitude and low-level healing factor versus the raw durability of Bruce's suit, but that would be if we weren't taking the shield into account. Captain America's own raw durability and endurance can definitely keep up with even the Batsuit, but the fact that he has his shield to protect him from any sort of output that Bruce has in his belt, at least in his standard arsenal, definitely means that we think Captain America takes the durability stat hands down.
Yeah, Cap's durability on its own, just raw durability, is already even with Bruce's durability with his armor, like Sammy said, so the shield is definitely a difference maker, but Bruce does have other ways to make up for that fact. Going back into speed, we do think Cap takes this category in movement speed at the very least. He is, as we said, faster on foot than Bruce just by running. Even Bruce's best speeds at his burst, still slower than Cap's consistent sprinting speed. But it shouldn't make that big of a difference because you're not really going to be running while you're fighting, unless you're like the Flash or something, and we both know that these two characters aren't that. It should be noted though that Cap's endurance means that he can maintain his top speed throughout an extended fight. However, Batman can more than make up for this with his reaction and combat speed matching, and even surpassing the best that Cap has had, at least in close quarters. I'd be hesitant to say that they're outright equals, more so that they excel in different areas of speed, whilst also being relatively close to one another in general. Just Bruce is slightly above close quarters reaction, and Cap is slightly above in raw speed and endurance to keep up that speed.
Yeah, and like you said, the movement speed is honestly going to be the less important stat here. So if we really had to give a winner in this stat, we'd definitely say that Bruce takes it. But moving on to the last category that we're going to run down, just to summarize, we gave strength and durability to Captain America, while speed and standard gear went to Batman. But in terms of martial arts, both are definitely, like we mentioned, the greatest combatants on their respective Earth. And they each do have statements saying that they have knowledge of every style within their Earth, at least in terms of a baseline knowledge. And we would be remiss to not mention their crossover skirmish. This did involve only hand-to-hand, so obviously it's relevant to skill. Batman notes that Steve could hypothetically beat him, though it would take quite a bit of time for him to do that. Now, the validity of crossover feats in general is obviously questionable, but I did find it worth noting, if not just to avoid seeing comments about it. I will say, though, that this definitely is probably an accurate portrayal of how an initial fight would go with them in hand-to-hand. They are fairly relative to one another in terms of martial arts knowledge, even though if we do think that Bruce has a little bit more. But as far as from a distance, they're obviously, as we mentioned, both expert marksmen, but Batman does hold a distinct advantage in versatility and we think overall skill when it comes to distance. He's definitely the superior ranged fighter, and as I mentioned, we do see him as the superior martial artist as well. So in terms of skill, we're definitely going to give it to Batman. Now we did cover the 5 stats: strength, durability, speed, gear, and skill. But it isn't always a best 3 out of 5 situation where just because you win 3 out of 5 doesn't mean you win the entire fight. But we do think that this is an accurate representation, at least in this case. So in a one-on-one fight with standard gear, we think that Batman is definitely going to take it, what would you say, around probably 6 to 7 out of 10 times, more closely to probably 5.5 to 6.
Yeah, even with Cap's shield providing an extra defensive and offensive boost to Cap's durability and output, the skill difference would eventually or immediately make a difference in the fight, with Batman using his wide array of batarangs in intelligent situations, or simply outskilling Cap in a hand-to-hand fight, maybe potentially even taking the shield for himself or to disarm Cap. It's entirely possible, though we do acknowledge that Cap could take the fight. Theoretically, if it was a basis of out of 10, Batman would take majority. I agree about 6 times, 5.5, 6 times.
Yeah, it's definitely not a decisive victory for Batman or anything. We did almost consider flipping a coin for this, just because it is that close. Probably one of the closest crossover fights in comics that we see. But Captain America could definitely take it. Let's say hypothetically it was a more drawn out long fight. He does have the superior endurance and durability, but if we're going just standard 1v1, we think that Bruce Wayne defeats Steve Rogers 6 out of 10 times. So yeah, that's our video for this week. Let us know if you prefer the list format, if you prefer that we cover another battle. If you do want to see another battle, definitely comment it down below. Don't forget to give this video itself a like and subscribe to the channel. Follow us at Big BattleBois on basically every platform. We're still on our way to 1,000 followers on TikTok, so definitely go by and help us get there. And thanks for being on this video with me today, RJ. Did you have anything to plug?
It was no problem coming on. It was like a throwback, really. I haven't had this matchup in like literal years, so it was a good back to basics kind of battle that we usually don't deal with anymore in our community. But for plugs, my Twitch, Beyonder was Took, Beyonder like the character and was Took. And I also have a TikTok, though a lot smaller than BattleBois. That is just BeeYondr, which just spells out Beyonder.
Now, like I said, guys, give us a subscribe. Thanks for watching, and once again, thanks to RJ for being on here.
Yeah, of course. I can't wait to be in another one in the future.
All right, have a good one, guys.